Mornings with Marc Hayford. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, it's Monday. It's Monday. You know what? Monday does not take control. You take control. You set the pace. You're in charge. Wake it up, fire it up, and take that mentality all through the day, all through the week, all through the rest of this month. Slay this day. Go through it right now before you do anything else. Subscribe to this channel if you have not. If this is the first time, welcome. We're ripped into the middle of season 3. Subscribe right now. Do I need to come to your house and push the buttons for you? No, it's really easy. You are going to have rock stars. You are going to have authors. You are going to have Jedi Knight warriors every week coming on here and blowing up this show with vision, positivity, inspiration. And that is exactly what we're serving up today. I am so excited to bring one of our guests to you that I've been trying to coordinate since last season, because this man is not only known in so many various circles in his professional world. This guy is probably the most intelligent guest that I've ever sat down with. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for a psychologist, author, life coach, motivational speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shad Helmstetter! Woo!
Good to be with you.
Dr. Shad, now I need a nap. So, hey, welcome to the program. Welcome to Monday Mornings at Marc Hayford. It's so nice to have you on here.
Well, thanks for having me.
You know, you are a busy guy. You have so many different things going on. It was hard to coordinate this. I'm glad that we can. And I'm so excited to be able to showcase you to everyone that's watching. I mean, we have people all over the world that tune into this show. We have all different backgrounds, success stories, walks of life. And you have so many different accomplishments. You help so many people with it's more than just a product of what you put out there. It's a mindset of what you do. And I really want to talk about that. I have so many questions. There's a lot of people later on that have questions for you from our mailbag segment. First of all, Dr. Shad, you're an author. You have so many books that you've put out there that people just gravitate to. I believe it was 2005. You came out with The Gift, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, The Power of Neuroplasticity. I mean, this is mind-blowing stuff. You're like a brain surgeon on my show. This is exciting. What let me ask you, what inspired you to first take this pen, put it on paper, and to get that first book going? What was that? How did that come about?
I noticed in the field of marketing that that good marketers could get people to get up off their sofa on a Saturday afternoon during their favorite game and go out and buy something that they didn't know they wanted and didn't need. And I thought, what's the mechanism that makes that happen? And so I decided to look into it. And I thought, what if we applied those kinds of motivational techniques where we're influencing other people? What if we applied that to ourselves? And that started me on a long path and a lot of research and a lot of study to come up with the answers. And I found the answers.
I've had the pleasure of years ago, I've actually DJ'd an event that you did some sound and things like that. And what blew me away, we're kind of yin and yang here, right? Different personalities. You're more subdued. I'm a little over the top, whatever. I've seen them all. And what I saw the day that you did a live training was so intriguing to me, because I don't know how someone can go from one end of the spectrum where you can have people like this and they're in and they're vested. And then by simply just delivering a message, you had people in tears like that. Like I saw adults in tears. You know how to trigger different emotions. I mean, you're like another level of understanding, which was so.
You're hired. You're hired.
Thank you. It was very impressive. And at the end, those very same people that were crying were laughing and were motivated. Where does that come from? How do you evoke these emotions out of people and kind of be able to set them on a certain mindset?
I can answer that. I actually I decided years ago to, even though you just referred to it, but I never called myself a motivational speaker. nothing wrong with motivational speakers. They're great people, helping a lot of people.
Sure.
I was interested in delivering a message that people could take home with them, that was absolutely real, that was based on science, even though I don't talk a lot about the science when I'm on stage. But I decided that I would always talk to the real people in the audience, as though it was just that person and me. And when I'm going to speak in front of a group, in advance, in a few minutes before I go onto that stage, I think about, what if this was the most important person in the world to me? It is. And what if this was the last time I could ever talk to them?
Wow.
What would I say? And so I decided that I would just speak from that. And that's why I don't usually speak from notes, because I just show up to tell them what I've learned, and then I go home.
I've noticed that you didn't have notes, and you were, it was a couple hours for a day training or whatever it was, and there were no notes. That's impressive. And wow. And from what I ascertain, you don't do the cookie cutter thing. That is authentic. Like, you actually care about the people that you are speaking to. Maybe that's where that connection comes in and how you can reach so many. So that's so impressive. Can you talk about The Gift? When you wrote the book, The Gift, what is The Gift about? That was one of the earlier ones, but that one was kind of when you came into my sphere, when I was, starting to realize who Dr. Shad Helmstetter was. So tell us about The Gift.
I had done an outline for a book many years ago that defined the 12 most important practices or steps, tools, to become successful. And there were a lot of books like that. But I didn't want to write somebody else's book. I wanted to apply those principles to real people. And I thought the best way to do that would be to find an organization of people who was using those kinds of principles and teaching them in order for their people to be successful. So that's why I chose to write it about a network marketing organization, because that's exactly what they do. They help people apply tools of success and practice them. And so eventually I found what I could see was the right organization to write about, that happened to be Arbonne. And so that's why I wrote about Arbonne. I was never asked by anybody in that corporation to say anything about them. I just found that they were really doing it. And so that's why they're mentioned in that book. But it helped me get across practical applications of these success tools that we keep hearing so much about. What really makes them work. And I thought the best way to show that would be to observe people who were doing it and then write about that. And so that's what I did.
And that's such an interesting this whole perspective that you have, because you hit it on the head. You don't do network marketing. I do. And I was actually speaking with a team member the other day, and they came to the realization of, this isn't about protein and eye cream or weight loss or whatever. It's about building people. It's about building networks. It's about personal growth and bettering yourself. And when you become more attractive and when you become more confident, that attracts other people. A players want to work with other A players. And I believe in that book, that is what you, again, evoke out of people and pull from them. It's so impressive. Let's go to this one. What to say when you talk to yourself, picked up by Simon & Schuster. Can you tell us about that? That's really interesting, because I got firsthand experience of that in my own household. Take us on that.
Book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, is actually written, well, it came out 31 years ago. And at that time,
Dr. Shad, I wasn't even born yet. No, we're good.
No, most of the people watching weren't. But that book is that's the first book that completely popularized the concept of self-talk. And self-talk is something we all do. But as I write about it, and what that book talks about, is that self-talk is a way of literally redefining your path, redefining your actions, redefining your attitudes, all based on what you say when you talk to yourself, hence the name of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I had discovered was that from the field of neuroscience, that our thoughts actually wire our brain. We used to be taught that the brain stops growing. You only get so many neurons when you're young, the brain stops growing, and then that's it for the rest of our lives. And then we lose a lot of those neurons and we're out of luck. Well, it wasn't true at all. It's just because science yet hadn't found a way to look into the brain and scan it. And now we can do that. And what we've learned is that our brain continues to grow and change throughout our entire lives. And the most important factor in things that change our brain is actually our thoughts. Repeated thoughts, repeated words, repeated messages actually rewire the brain. And I think that that's an absolutely phenomenal truth, because that means it isn't up to them out there. It isn't up to everybody else. It isn't up to our past. For instance, it doesn't make any difference where you've been. And when I'm talking to an audience, I'll tell them right straightforward, I don't care where you've been. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't mean that I'm not being compassionate. I am. But the reason I don't care about where they've been is because it's not where they've been, or the problems that they've gone through, or the difficulties they've had to deal with, or the challenges that life has given them. It's what they do now with what they've got. And the brain is waiting to be wired and rewired and rewired. And so we get to do that with our thoughts. And the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, that was the first book that really made the public broadly aware of that. And I'm not selling books here, but I do want to mention that book is now in 70 countries around the world.
Wow.
And
wow.
Each year, more countries. In fact, just recently, just in the past couple of years, went into Russia, in Russian, in Chinese, in Arabic, in Saudi Arabia, in Turkish, and in 5 languages in India. So what's happening is worldwide, there's a tipping point. We're starting to get it. People understand you get programmed, you grow up with those programs, and those programs are wired into your brain, and you can change those programs. And that's the message. And it's a message that's going worldwide, and they're getting it.
You know, when my wife was in the infancy stages of building her business years ago, I mean, that was absolutely prominent in our household. You know, that was one of the main things that she plugged into for personal self-growth and for, you know, reestablishing just commitment into the business and all the other things that are needed for a recipe of success. That, and as she walked around saying, I love my husband, I love my husband, I love my husband, I love my, that was good. That worked out. So I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Dr. Shad Helmstetter, and we are talking neuroplasticity. We're talking about how brains are hardwired. This is like, I'm all geeked up, man. This is exciting. Let me ask you, do you think Muhammad Ali had neuroplasticity without even realizing what it was before it was even brought out, like you talk about in your books? I mean, do you think that's...
Yes. Yeah, he did. A lot of athletes do. In fact, that's where we first saw self-talk being used, was in sports and athletics. At the time, years ago, when they started using it, they really didn't understand how the process worked, but they knew the results. And the results were that they were doing, the people who believed they could do it and literally talk to themselves in a way that gave them a picture in their mind of them accomplishing the goal. Those athletes tended to do better. They would win. And there have been now studies, scientific studies done on exactly that. And that's what happens. The athletes who practice self-talk prior to events, especially a period of time prior to the event, do better in the event. They can increase their endurance up to 17 to 18%.
Wow.
What they say when they talk to themselves. So, and you only need 2 or 3% change in endurance to win the feat, to win the event. So we now have a lot of proof that this concept works. But people like Muhammad Ali and others They were using it years ago. They were just popular, so we saw them using it. He used it famously. But now we find out that the brain is the same for each of us. And we find that kids at home, little kids, very young kids, as soon as they're able to talk, I encourage parents to begin teaching the right self-talk to kids all the way from infancy on up. And the reason for that is we're literally typing in, we keep typing in messages into the child's brain. And any message that the brain receives that's repeated often enough gets wired in. So that's how wiring really happens. It happens through repetition. And so every single thing we say to our kids on a repeated basis, we're actually typing into their brains, and we're typing it permanently into their brains. So if you want to help your kids get it right, a great way to start is being consciously aware, always mindful of everything you type into that child's computer keyboard, because that is what they're going to take with them.
That's so powerful that you're saying that. I've actually had this conversation in the past with people. I talk because I've dealt a lot with kids within the school system and coaching and things like that. And I talk about when we have these young children, they're a little dated here, but it's like a blank disc or a blank CD. And we're able to burn things onto that disc for better or for worse. So we have to be responsible as adults when we're interacting with kids for our actions, what we say, what we think. You know, you're making me think. When my oldest boy, Kane, who's about to be 16, when he was in the womb, my wife, Christina, used to play the baby Beethovens and, you know, all this. And when he was the kid is a musical prodigy. He can play like 5-6 different instruments and fluently and easily. And yes, he takes lessons and he works at it and all that. But I don't know if just some of that was hardwired before he was even, you know, here on the planet with us. It's really interesting. Another point I like about what you're saying, there's a couple people that are out on the web now that are debunking the whole idea of motivation and things like that. And they're saying it's garbage. But what you're actually saying, not so much motivation, but hardwiring, just this positive reinforcement. And you mentioned vision a couple times. I mean, that's a staple in business today. How many people out there have vision boards, or they said, I saw this, I saw myself on that stage, I saw myself at that podium before it happened. I feel like that's what you're.
Well, here's how it actually works. There have been people over the years who have said positive thinking can't possibly work. It's just thoughts, and it doesn't really make any difference. So that positive thinking is just wishful thinking or hopeful thinking. It's not that at all. Here's what we've learned from neuroscience, and this is absolutely fascinating. People who think more positively grow more neurons, and I won't make this heavy.
No, this is great. This is great. Because I know a lot of people that have lost a lot of neurons, okay? So
all right, well, I'm going to show how this works. People who think more positively grow more neurons in the left prefrontal cortex of their brain. So right there, they get more neurons actually growing in that part of the brain because they're thinking positively. That happens to be, right here, that happens to be the part of the brain that helps you look for solutions, find new alternatives, and keep in balance. All right. People who think negatively, I call them negatives, but people who think negatively by habit grow more neurons in the right prefrontal cortex of the brain, and that just happens to be the part of the brain that shuts down when problems come up, does not look for solutions, can't find solutions, and takes off. That's the fight or flight. So here's what happens. People who are positive thinkers actually have more ammunition, more tools. They've got more brain power working for them. So it's science now, and now we know it, because now we can actually use brain scans and map areas of the brain and find out what's going on. So anyone who ever says to any of your viewers, if anyone says, oh, that positive thinking, that doesn't really work. Oh, not only does it really work, it's science. You're growing more neurons in the part of your brain that helps you succeed. I think that's powerful. I think that's very exciting.
You just blew my mind. That's what I'm going to say. That I love that it is science-based. This is fantastic. Okay. Speaking of that, I had the privilege of being able to take you at one event that you flew out for, to the airport. We had a ride together. And, there's a lot to it, but if you can kind of give a synopsis, this really blew my mind. And I just, God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. I just wanted to listen to everything you had to say. And you talked about the dichotomy of a room when you're speaking to it. There's actually where people are seated in the room, and I'm going to butcher this, but you can bring justice to it. Where people are seated in the room actually allocates for different personality traits. And that was so fascinating to me. You said, and you said that actually over time there were, if you were to drop a box of pens or something, people seated in a certain part of the room would be the first ones continuously to be able to get up to assist and things of that nature. Can you do some of that, break that down? Because that was, I needed more of that in my life to hear that. That was so interesting.
I thought about writing a book about that subject. I found that people sat in the audience based on a basic personality profile type. And so I began to study that, and it happened because I noticed that whenever I would go like that too often, so somebody in the audience would think, well, he needs a glass of water. And so somebody, very kind person, would get me a glass of water and bring it up to the stage. And I realized, and this was in city after city after city, to audiences of whether it was 500 or 5,000 people, the same thing would happen. And I realized that those people who were bringing me that glass of water or trying to help were always sitting in the same place in the audience. I also noticed that people who are very technically oriented, very analytical, so that would be people in the medical profession, perhaps, people in the legal profession, and so on, in the sciences, they sat in a certain part of the audience. And so I found out that there were different areas of the audience. And I don't have time to go into it now in any detail, but so I ended up giving more than one seminar at the same time, because when I would be talking about things that we feel in the heart and how we can just sense something, then I would talk to that group of people who listen through their intuition and their feelings. And when I was describing something that was very technical, I would turn, and this is in the same paragraph, and I would turn and talk to those people. So I was actually giving different seminars to the same audience. But the reason that I'm responding to you now on this is because here's the message in this. Listen for how the people listening to you are listening. Watch how they're listening, and speak to them as opposed to just saying what you wanted to say. You can say what you wanted to say. You can say it very directly. But let's say that you're making a presentation. I know people, wonderful people, who will make a presentation, make it the same way every time. Mm-hmm. That's okay. But they're making the presentation without taking into account that the person they're talking to may be listening entirely different than the previous group of people that they were talking to. So it's good to be aware of that, and it doesn't have a lot to do with rewiring the brain, but it has a lot to do with success when you're making presentations.
So you're saying there's even a science to public speaking in front of groups. I mean, this is all, wow.
There is. Yeah.
What does a guy like you, where you're at such a different level of understanding and how people work and how the brain works, and what do you do to turn it off? What do you do for downtime? How do you relax? Do you relax? Can you turn it off?
Mindfulness is not only being aware of what you're thinking, but it helps you be in control of what you're thinking. And let's go back to self-talk for a moment. Self-talk, because the self-talk you use or the self-talk you listen to repeatedly, because that's wiring your brain, that actually wires your brain and creates habits and attitudes. One of those habits and attitudes would be relaxing, peace of mind. And so a long time ago, I began wiring in those neural pathways in my own brain that would automatically take me down, that would automatically relax me and give me that calming peace of mind that we all need to recover from the moment of the day. So when you practice self-talk, part of the self-talk you practice is to relax, be healthy, to find peace, to be in balance. And that's just, it's just like there is self-talk that helps you get it really moving and put yourself into action and get things done and analyze and look around and take care of everything you need to take care of. There's that kind of self-talk. There's also the balance to that, the other kind, which allows you to get the healthy relaxation that you need.
There's a science to relaxing is what you guys are hearing here. We are live with Dr. Shad Helmstetter. This is unbelievable. Let's segue into this here because I got to get to the mailbag, Dr. Shad. There's a lot of people have questions, but before we do that, the Self-Talk Institute, you've created that. You're helping other people understand this knowledge that you have and be able to reinforce that out into the universe. Can you talk a little bit about what is the Self-Talk Institute?
About just over 30 years ago, I founded the Self-Talk Institute because I recognized that self-talk was a science and that it could be taught. So I made a goal many years ago, even prior to that time, that I would always make what I did in life about the message rather than about myself. So that I would not play the guru or that kind of leader. Nothing wrong with gurus, I suppose. I just didn't want to be one of them. I wanted this to be about the message. And I felt the best way to do that would be to found an organization, the Self-Talk Institute, that would train people to deliver the message that I was delivering, because my goal in life is to help people help people. And I set that goal when I was very, very young. And so the Self-Talk Institute is made up of people who not only study this, but we have wonderful certified self-talk trainers all over, and they're doing what I do. They're going out and talking to people about this so that people can apply it in their own lives. And the Institute is strong and growing, and it's a wonderful group of people.
And if people go to your website, they can become ambassadors, if you will, for the Self-Talk Institute and get trained to do this, correct?
People can become trained and certified, and we used to have to do that in person, but because we live in the age we live in now, we have teletraining like this, and so we train people to become self-talk trainers. So if you're the kind of individual who wants to help others and you would like to get in front of groups, we train you not to be me. We train you to be you, and we give you the message that people are waiting to hear.
That's fantastic. So you can be yourself and still get that same message across. Hey, well, listen, hashtag technology here, right? Now we have Self-Talk Plus. Self-Talk Plus, that's more of a live streaming gig that you do, right? Talk about that, because I think that is appealing to so many people. We're in such a noisy, fast, busy world, but here you can serve it up directly and they can plug in directly. What's up with the Self-Talk Plus?
Self-Talk Plus is absolutely wonderful. Here's a great picture. So for years and years, I would be in front of audiences, and then I would talk about listening to self-talk, because learning self-talk is exactly like learning a new language, except the language is in English. In this case, the language you speak. But it's learning to reframe your own words to yourself, because you're rewiring your brain. So people listen to self-talk in the background. It used to be on cassettes. Then science or technology changed, and then it was on CDs, and then it was on downloads. My goal was always to make it instant, so that people didn't have to buy a $200 album of self-talk programs, although that's great. And if you want to do it, that's good. They're there. But I wanted people to be able to connect instantly. So over a period of time, we developed Self-Talk Plus, SELFTALKPLUS.com. And you go there, and it's a membership site, and you can listen to any self-talk at any time on any listening device from anywhere. And so it's a wonderful way to get self-talk out to the world. And we have many, many members and they love it.
All right, guys. So we want you to go out there as soon as you're done watching this show and subscribing to Monday Mornings at Marc Hayford. We want you to check out www.selftalkplus. Go check that out. And there is a ton of things out there that I've been able to benefit from that and from the trainings and to be able to see some of what you're offering out there. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's just, I feel like this is a tip of an iceberg of what we're showcasing here on this show, and the whole freaking chunk of ice is underneath. So you guys have to go check out Self-Talk Plus. It's unbelievable. Hey, Dr. Shad, there's people they're dying to ask you questions. You had the opportunity here. Can we go to the mailbag? You want to do that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Marc Hayford mailbag. Marc Hayford mailbag. Marc Hayford mailbag. Borrow from U.S. Postal Service. All right, Dr. Shad, here we go. I love our mailbags. You never know what we're going to get and where it's coming from. So here we go. Okay. People all over the place. All right, here we go. Let's start off with a mutual friend we have. This is from Carrie Zumis out of Monroe, New Jersey. Jersey! Dr. Shad, she asked, what's the best way to approach someone that suffers from negativity without turning them off of the whole idea of personal development? What do you got to say for Carrie?
First up, incredible. Best way, it's almost impossible to confront someone and tell them to change. We know because we've all tried it. If you have someone living at home who is negative, that would be a example. It's best not to go to that person and criticize them and say, well, doctor, you did change your self-talk because your brain, that won't help them. But what does help is to use self-talk for yourself. Let's say you're listening, and let's say you're listening to self-talk every morning while you're getting for about 15 minutes. Play it out enough so that that other person can hear it. Now, don't tell them not to listen to it. Just the way it works is we'll wire their brain with the same kinds of positive attitudes that it's wiring your brain with, because the brain, where it's coming, if it can hear it, it's going to pick it up. And if it's repeated, that's why day after day counts. If it's repeated day, their brain is going to wire it in, just like your brain. I've had people contact me later and say, Dr. Shad, I was in the house who was negative, and my wife started listening to self-talk. And it was repeated phrases, so to this. Then my wife kept the background, and then one day, about later, 30 days later, I looked in the mirror and I realized I was changing. That's how self-talk. We learned our first songs without ever going to school. I mean, we don't know the words to songs that we heard when we were 2 and 3 and 4 years old. And we word for word. That's how it just brain is recording your hearing.
Wow. So the brain's like a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You got to work it out and it gets stronger with consistency. Yes. That's amazing. All right. Hey, let's go to Kansas City, Kansas. This is a Gen Y rock star here. This is from Dylan Dreiling. Dylan says, can you describe the difference between action and inspired action? And how can people make that transition into purpose and passion? Dr. Shad, I don't even know what the hell he just said. What do you got for Dylan Dreiling?
He is a brilliant gentleman. And Dylan, that's a wonderful quote. Here's the basic. Neuroscientists have learned that our brain gets programmed faster and stronger when we add emotion to the mix. So when we want to do something and be inspired to do it, the more you count the outcome, the more important it is to you, the more value it has that it gives to you or to other. That creates emotion. Emotion creates energy, and that energy creates inspiration, or inspiration. All about the more you care, the greater the emotion, the stronger the inspiration you'll have.
Wow. So it's about giving effort and caring.
It's about caring about what you do, and that's why your intention. We hear a lot these days about intention, the power of intention. That's why intention is so important. It's because it brings your emotions and your feelings and your caring into play.
Wow. All right. You got that, Dylan. Here we go. Next question. This is Bethany Lee Jones out of Asheville, North Carolina. Bethany asks, she said, I'd love to know if Dr. Shad has found self-talk to help people that are on the spectrum at all. I believe she's talking about autistic. This may not be the place to ask that, but I am genuinely curious about that. Bethany, this is the greatest place to ask that. Dr. Shad, what can you say to Bethany?
That's another superstar person with a superstar question. Not being a medical doctor, I can't answer that from any medical point of view. All I can tell you is this. Self-talk is being used and practiced with people who are on the spectrum. And the number one thing that it seems, what it does first is it helps that individual build back their self-esteem. Because when you have those challenges in your life, one of the first things that happens is your self-esteem is diminished. Other people treat you differently and not always in the best possible way. And so self-esteem gets attacked. And self-talk or the use of self-talk, I'll put it this way, the messages you give that person that build that person's self-esteem will spread out and can have a beneficial role in the rest of their life. And I'm saying that not from a medical point of view, but just observing what people are doing with it.
I was doing an event last night for kids, and there's a child that I know that absolutely not autistic, but severe ADHD, and we were having a conversation as I was doing the event, and this child was telling me how they've had, in recent times, in the past quarter, I guess, these amazing grades. Their grades have jumped up. They've tried harder. They focused more. They found whatever method worked for them. And the clarity of the conversation that I had with this child was probably, this was a group in a school environment. This child had such demonstrative just confidence because, I guess, of the success that they've had. And that's interesting. So we're not making any claims here, people. But, again, science to everything. Dr. Shad, got one more question. One more here. This is from Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Kim Yeager. Kim Yeager says, Dr. Shad, how long does it take for self-talk to start working? What's a ballpark?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Is there a reason for that?
This is fascinating, and I'll keep this real short. But we used to read a lot that if you want to set a goal or change a habit, it takes 21 days to change a habit. We didn't know, but that's because it's neurological. It's because when you start changing your self-talk, as an example, and you're going to create a new habit or a new attitude, it takes about 3 weeks for your brain to actually begin to wire new pathways into place and connect with other neural pathways you have. We call them programs. It takes about 3 weeks to begin to create those programs. So if you want to use self-talk and you want to change, don't try it for a day and say, well, that didn't work. That would be like taking this perfect vitamin, but only taking one and then waiting for something to happen. It takes time, but fortunately, it doesn't take a lifetime. You can have a lifetime of negative or difficult programs, and you can actually begin to change those within weeks of starting. So let me be very encouraging. Not only does it work, but you can watch it work, and it works fast enough that it's not too long to stay with it. Most people can stay with something for 3 weeks. Then you start to get it. Then you start to experience it and watch what it's doing in your life. Then it's easy to stay with it.
So you're saying I should stay with the hair regrowth? Keep fighting. Keep doing it. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Dr. Shat, I want to thank you so much for taking your valuable time coming out and sharing this science. This is so intriguing. I could talk to you for hours, but we don't have the time here and you don't have the time. And I just want to encourage everyone once again to go out here. Listen, the Self-Talk Plus, www.selftalkplus.com. Go check that out. Subscribe here. Guys, we're going to wrap this show up right now. And I want to you know what? You're in control. You're in control of you. You can set the tempo of your own life. You heard it here from the doctor who said it is scientifically proven. You can fix this. I said this before. You get this right, you can do anything. Put yourself over. Lift yourself up. Lift others up. And do what it's going to take to get where you want to go. Do it scientifically. Do it consistently. Do it with the tools that are given. And go out there today and take charge today. Take charge this week. Go create the best day that you've ever had right now. We love you guys for tuning in. Want to thank you so much for checking us out once again. Next week, we will be back with a vengeance again because Monday's coming back and so are we. So for Dr. Shad Helmstetter, for Marc Hayford, we want to thank you guys for tuning in and we will see you next week. Peace.